She feels a strong inner voice warning her before danger. It's not fear. It's not paranoia. It's something deeper, an unexplainable sense that rises up within her, pulling her back when she's about to walk into something destructive. She might be smiling on the outside, walking confidently into a room, a relationship, or a conversation, but suddenly something changes. Her spirit tenses. Her mind grows alert. Her heart whispers, "No, not this way." And though no one else sees what she sees, she knows something is wrong. It's like her soul has been wired to detect darkness before it even reaches her. And it's not because she's been hurt so much that she's overly cautious. It's because she's covered, protected, watched over by a higher force that steps in and gently redirects her path before she even realizes the danger. She doesn't always have the full picture. The warning doesn't always come with a reason. Sometimes it's just a sudden uneasiness, a feeling in her chest that won't go away, a nudge that tells her to step back from someone who seems perfect on paper. She might second-guess herself at first, trying to reason with the logic of the situation, trying to justify the red flags away. But that voice inside her doesn't waver. It speaks with calm urgency. And when she listens, she always finds out later, something was deeply wrong. The people she thought were kind had hidden agendas. The situations she almost stepped into were laced with chaos. The invitations she declined turned out to be traps. And every time she looks back, she realizes that voice wasn't just intuition, it was divine protection. Other people might tell her she's overthinking. They don't understand why she suddenly distances herself from certain environments, why she chooses solitude over certain social circles, why she walks away without a clear explanation. But she's learned not to ignore that voice. She's learned that peace isn't found in explaining herself to everyone, it's found in obedience. That voice has never led her into confusion. It has only ever pulled her out of places she didn't belong in. While others fall for flattery and charm, she senses something beneath the surface. It's like she can hear what people aren't saying. She reads the energy behind the words, and what some call oversensitivity, she has come to recognize as spiritual discernment. There were moments when she didn't listen. When she went ahead, silenced that voice, tried to be logical, tried to give people the benefit of the doubt, and every single time she paid the price. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. The aftermath left her drained, disoriented, and ashamed that she ignored what she knew deep down to be true. But those mistakes only sharpened her discernment. They taught her to trust that inner voice more than the noise around her. And now that voice is louder, clearer, and impossible to silence. She understands that this kind of insight doesn't come from self-help books or life experience alone. It's something sacred, a gift, a sign that she's not walking this life alone. There is a covering over her, an invisible hand steering her away from hidden danger. She doesn't need to see the trap to avoid it. She just needs to trust the warning. She's not afraid to walk away from opportunities that look good, but feel wrong. Because she knows that protection doesn't always look like open doors. Sometimes it looks like closed ones. Sometimes it looks like discomfort, a sudden shift, or a painful pause. But every time she listens, something in her life is spared. A toxic connection, a false friendship, a spiritual attack. She sees it more clearly now than ever. Her steps are guided. Her intuition isn't just instinct, it's a shield. Her relationships end abruptly when they're not right. Sometimes without warning, sometimes without closure. One day everything seems fine, and the next it's over. People she thought would stay forever suddenly vanish. Connections she believed were meaningful fall apart in the most unexpected ways. It can feel confusing, painful, even unjust. But over time she begins to notice a pattern, a divine pattern. These breakups, fallouts, and disappearing acts weren't coincidences. They were interventions. God doesn't wait for her to see the truth when He knows someone is not meant to walk her path. He steps in and removes the person before deeper damage can be done. She may cry, she may question, she may even beg for understanding. But later, always later, she sees it clearly. That person wasn't who they claimed to be. Their motives weren't pure. Their presence was a distraction, a weight, a trap dressed in charm or affection. They looked safe, but they were sent to slow her down or lead her away from her purpose. And the sudden end wasn't cruelty. It was protection. Because she didn't always have the strength to walk away. She didn't always have the clarity to spot danger masked as love or friendship. So the ending was forced. The door was shut. The connection was severed before it could destroy her spirit. It's not easy being protected like this. It means living with heartbreaks that don't make sense in the moment. It means grieving people who never gave her the closure she deserved. It means carrying emotional weight that sometimes feels unfair. But even in that pain there's a deep knowing that it wasn't her loss, it was her rescue. When a woman is covered by divine protection, she doesn't get to keep every relationship. She doesn't get to entertain every offer. She doesn't get to remain in every circle. God filters her life in ways she can't always understand, removing what threatens her future even when she's emotionally attached to it. And it's not just romantic relationships. It's friendships too. Business partnerships, family ties. Some of the losses are shocking. People she trusted completely turn cold. People she stood by in hard times suddenly betray her. It feels like rejection, but it's actually redirection. It's God saying this isn't for you. She learns not to chase, not to beg, not to reopen doors that closed on their own. Because every time she tried to hold on to something that was leaving, her peace left with it. Every time she fought to keep someone who was meant to go, she lost a piece of herself. Over time she stops asking why. She starts trusting the process. She understands that people will exit her life when they've served their purpose, or when they've been revealed as harmful. And no matter how good the relationship looked on the outside, she accepts that what God removes is never truly safe for her soul. It takes strength to accept sudden endings. It takes faith to believe there's a bigger plan at work. But she's learned that endings are often the beginning of something more aligned with her destiny. The pain is temporary, but the protection is permanent. And sometimes the removal happens right before the breakthrough, right before she's about to step into something new. Old ties break, people grow distant, communication stops, the relationship collapses without reason. That's when she knows something sacred is shifting. God is making room, making space for new people, new energy, new direction. She no longer panics when someone walks away. She no longer tries to fix what God has torn down, because she knows now what leaves her wasn't meant for her. And what's meant for her will never require force to stay. She faces isolation that leads to revelation. It's not the kind of loneliness that comes from being unloved. It's a solitude that feels designed, a sacred separation from noise, chaos and distractions. At first it feels like abandonment. Friends fall away. People she once relied on go silent. The invitations stop coming. The room grows quiet. And in that silence, all the emotions she's buried begin to surface. Doubts, fears, wounds, memories. But what she doesn't realize at first is that this isolation is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's God pulling her away from the world so He can speak to her without interference. In this space of stillness, she starts to hear what she couldn't hear when she was surrounded by people. She starts to feel things more deeply. Her intuition sharpens, her spirit becomes more sensitive. The very space that once felt like a void transforms into a sacred encounter. She begins to understand things she never noticed before. Patterns in her life, cycles she kept repeating. Emotional wounds that were still bleeding beneath the surface. It's in the isolation that truth becomes clear. Not the truth the world tells her, but the truth her soul needs. It's where the masks fall off, where she sees herself and others for who they really are. She realizes that not all connections are good for her. That some of the people she was trying to hold on to were never meant to walk with her into the next season. And some of the places she used to feel comfortable in were actually holding her back from growth. In isolation, God reveals what community can sometimes hide. He exposes the false sense of belonging she used to cling to. He dismantles the lies she believed about her worth, her identity, and her purpose. The solitude becomes a mirror, showing her the truth she was too busy to face before. It's not an easy process. There are days when the silence feels suffocating, when the absence of people makes her question her value. When the lack of noise makes her sit with thoughts she tried to outrun for years. But in that raw, vulnerable place something beautiful begins to happen. She reconnects with herself. She starts to hear her own voice again, not the voices of others, not the expectations, not the noise of comparison, but her own voice. And more importantly, she begins to hear God's voice, not as a thunderous command, but as a gentle whisper, guiding her, comforting her, reminding her that she's not alone in the quiet. This kind of isolation builds inner strength. It develops discernment. It teaches her how to stand without needing constant validation. When no one is clapping, she still moves forward. When no one is watching, she still chooses integrity. She learns to be anchored not in attention, but in truth. And the more time she spends in that sacred solitude, the more she starts to value it. It becomes her refuge, her reset, her source of clarity. She stops seeing it as emptiness, and starts recognizing it as elevation. Eventually, the isolation births revelation. She receives vision, strategy, healing, and wisdom. She realizes she wasn't being left behind, she was being set apart to grow, to transform, to prepare for something greater than she could have imagined, while she was still entangled in the noise of the world. She sees now that isolation wasn't a delay, it was acceleration disguised as stillness, and while the world kept spinning, she was being rooted. While others were chasing status, she was gaining substance. What she learned in the silence became the foundation for the woman she's becoming. A woman led not by the world, but by divine guidance. Evil people are exposed without her effort. She doesn't have to dig, doesn't have to spy, doesn't have to go searching for secrets. Somehow, the truth always finds its way to her. Just when someone's mask is starting to slip, something happens. A conversation overheard, a message accidentally seen, a sudden confession, or a shift in behavior that reveals more than words ever could. It's as if the universe conspires to show her what's really going on behind the scenes. She never has to play games or match darkness with darkness. All she does is stay true to herself, and somehow, the people around her reveal who they truly are. It's a spiritual law that works in her favor. When she's covered by God, deception cannot last long around her. It doesn't matter how charming or convincing someone might be. If they have hidden motives, if they're manipulative, controlling, deceitful, or wicked behind the scenes, that darkness can't stay hidden forever. It slips through the cracks, their words stop matching their actions, their energy shifts, they get uncomfortable around her truth, and without her doing a thing, their own behavior starts to sabotage them. They expose themselves with their inconsistency, their dishonesty, their overcompensation, and the more they try to maintain the lie, the more obvious it becomes. The truth rises like smoke from a fire, it cannot be ignored. She's been in situations where everyone else was fooled by someone, where others praised and admired a person who had dangerous intentions, but something in her always felt off. She couldn't explain it at first. There was no evidence, no visible reason to question them, but her spirit knew. Her peace was disturbed whenever that person was near. Her intuition warned her in subtle ways, and soon enough the facade broke. That person's real character came to light. Their lies were exposed, their charm lost its effect, and the people who once doubted her began to see what she saw from the beginning. This is not about revenge or vindication. It's about protection. It's about not being misled by people who pretend well. It's about not falling into emotional traps laid by those who want to exploit her kindness, her loyalty, or her empathy. God allows the deception to unravel not because she demands it, but because she walks in truth, and truth cannot coexist with manipulation for long. Where she stands, lies tremble. Darkness cannot thrive in her presence, because the light she carries, whether she realizes it or not, disturbs what is hidden. Even when she wants to give people the benefit of the doubt, even when she hopes for the best in someone, God doesn't let her stay blind. The exposure comes like a shock, like a moment of clarity that cannot be denied. It's uncomfortable, sometimes heartbreaking, but it's always timely. Just before she invests more, just before she sacrifices something sacred, the truth comes out. A message, a look, a tone in someone's voice, a dream, a whisper from her own soul, and in that moment, the illusion breaks. What was once fog becomes crystal clear. She sees the person, not the version they presented, but the one they were hiding. This divine exposure isn't just about keeping her safe, it's about keeping her aligned. It's about not letting her get tied to people who would poison her path, and no matter how convincing evil people may seem, they cannot hide from the light that surrounds her. It's not her power that exposes them, it's the covering over her life. When someone means her harm, God doesn't wait for the damage to be done. He reveals them, slowly, or suddenly, but always completely. There are people who walked away from her, not because she changed, but because their true nature couldn't survive in her presence. Their manipulation no longer worked. Their charm no longer impressed. Their schemes fell apart because the spirit she carries cannot be deceived for long. She is drawn to truth, even when it's painful. There's something inside her that refuses to settle for comfortable lies. She doesn't want sugar-coated words or empty affirmations that make her feel good for a moment, but leave her lost in the long run. done. She wants to see reality as it is, even when it hurts, even when it shatters her expectations, breaks her illusions, and forces her to confront things she wasn't ready for. She values growth over comfort, alignment over approval, and integrity over ease. She understands that healing only begins where truth is allowed to speak, and so she seeks it out relentlessly, even if it costs her relationships, security, or a sense of belonging. She has learned that truth doesn't always come wrapped in beauty. Sometimes it arrives in the form of betrayal, silence, or the end of something she desperately wanted to hold on to. But even in those moments of pain, she chooses to face it, because deep down she knows that truth is not her enemy, it's her liberation. It cuts deep, but it cuts clean. It exposes the infection, so that healing can happen. It rips off the mask so the real can be revealed. She doesn't run from it. She leans into it. She prays for eyes that see, even if the vision pierces through her comfort. Her soul is wired to reject deceit. She can sense when something isn't right, even if she doesn't have the facts yet. There's an unrest that follows lies, a heaviness that comes when people are pretending, and she can't ignore it. She won't pretend to believe what doesn't sit right in her spirit. That makes her a threat to some people. The ones who rely on illusion and control feel uncomfortable around her. They don't like that she asks hard questions, that she sees beneath the surface, that she values what is real more than what is convenient. But that's what sets her apart. Her loyalty isn't to comfort, it's to truth. She listens to the hard truths others try to avoid, about herself, about the world, about people she loves. It's not easy, but it's necessary, because she knows that without truth, there's no foundation. Without truth, there's no peace, only a false sense of safety that eventually collapses. She would rather cry in truth than smile in denial. She would rather lose the lie than live in it. That kind of clarity is painful, but it's sacred. It positions her for freedom. It positions her for freedom. It positions her for strength. It positions her to walk in purpose with eyes wide open. There were times in her life when she wanted to believe the lie, when it was easier to stay in the dark, to hold on to the illusion, to keep pretending. But the weight of dishonesty always found its way to her soul. It created a disconnect between who she was and who she was pretending to be. That tension forced her to change, to let go, to face the mirror. And every time she did, she came out stronger, not just because she had more information, but because she had more alignment, more clarity, more inner peace. She is not swayed by flattery. She doesn't cling to comforting narratives that don't match reality. She watches actions. She listens beyond the words. She asks herself, is this true, or do I just want it to be? That level of honesty with herself is what protects her. It keeps her grounded. It keeps her from being led astray, because truth, as painful as it may be, is what sets her free. And when others are lost in illusions, chasing shadows, and ignoring their inner warning signs, she stands firm in what is real. She's not interested in illusions of love, fake friendships, or opportunities that require her to lie to herself. She would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by lies, disguised as light. She carries a peace that doesn't make sense to the world around her. In the middle of storms, in the middle of chaos, when others would panic, break down, or lose themselves, she remains calm, not because her life is perfect, not because everything is easy, but because something deeper is holding her. A stillness rooted in faith, in trust, in the knowing that she is not alone. That kind of peace doesn't come from people, money, or certainty. It comes from a connection to something greater than her circumstances. It's a peace that has been tested, shaken, and nearly stolen many times, but always returns stronger, because it's not built on surface-level stability. It's built on spiritual grounding. She's been through enough to know that chaos is temporary, that pain is a visitor, and that fear doesn't get the final word. And so she doesn't fight every battle. She doesn't react to every insult, every betrayal, every disappointment. She's learned to pause, to breathe, to listen before responding. That restraint isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the result of being guided by something deeper than emotion. She has developed the ability to step back, assess, and protect her energy. That inner calm becomes her weapon, her shield, her compass. While others are loud in fear, she's quiet in faith. People notice it. They may not understand it, but they feel it. Her peace unsettles those who rely on control and manipulation. They try to provoke her, to rattle her spirit, to pull her into their chaos. But she doesn't move, not because she doesn't feel pain, but because she knows that reacting to chaos gives it power. Instead, she chooses presence. She chooses stillness. She chooses stillness. She chooses clarity over noise. Her peace isn't passive, It's powerful. It's not the absence of struggle, it's the decision not to let struggle define her. That peace didn't come easily. It was earned through nights of prayer, through breakdowns that turned into breakthroughs, through losses that forced her to find her foundation in God alone. She used to be reactive. She used to live in anxiety, constantly trying to control outcomes, read people, fix everything. But it left her exhausted, drained, disconnected from herself. Eventually, she realized that peace wasn't something she could chase. It was something she had to protect. It had to be guarded from negative energy, from toxic people, from constant stimulation, and fear-based thinking. So she built boundaries, not walls to isolate, but filters to preserve what mattered. This peace allows her to hear things others miss. In the stillness, she gets answers. In the quiet, she finds direction. When everyone else is moving fast, she moves with intention. And that's why she's hard to manipulate. That's why evil people can't penetrate her space, because her calm exposes their chaos. Her silence reveals their noise. Her groundedness reflects back the instability in those around her, and it makes her immune to many traps that others fall into. She doesn't follow crowds. She doesn't need to prove herself. She knows that what's meant for her won't pass her by, and what leaves wasn't rooted enough to stay. That peace also brings discernment. She can walk into a room and feel the energy without anyone saying a word. She can detect tension beneath politeness, darkness behind charm, envy behind compliments. Her spirit is tuned in, not to drama, but to truth, and that truth keeps her aligned, keeps her from giving her heart to the wrong people, her time to the wrong causes, her mind to the wrong narratives. She doesn't live in denial. She doesn't need constant stimulation to feel alive. Her inner stillness gives her more strength than any external validation ever could. She is anchored, rooted, covered,